Hello CogX. I hope everybody is doing well. My name is Afiya Chohollo, and for the last 5 years, I've led on the development of Onfido's AI technology platform. And just a few weeks ago, I stepped away from my position there as a VP of Engineering and Technical Program Management to go on the crazy founder journey. Yes, I am now co-founder of CloudFO. And CloudFO is your AI finance colleague, and it's bringing the power of generative AI to company finances to provide true business intelligence. And today, I'll be pulling from both of those experiences as we discuss the integrity of infrastructure and systems in a scaled AI operation. Now, at CloudFO, we believe that in the future, we'll have colleagues that are human and colleagues that are AI. And just as we'd expect our human colleagues to act with integrity, we're going to hold our AI colleagues to the same standards. But that integrity needs to be intentionally designed into the systems as we build them. Now, if AI is the brain power, then integrity has to be built into it. So over this next 3 days of this incredible conference, you'll hear all about the latest in computer vision, natural language generation, neural networks, and it gets really exciting. But as I said, this has to be applied. So it's interesting when you add in the layers. Integrity is built up through the depth of the AI system. And it's complemented by our people, our processes, our policies, and how we execute. So let's start by framing the business problem. What are we trying to solve? Our technical actions need to be guided by the business goals. Our company vision, mission, and goals are measured by how well we meet our customer needs. And that measured by how well we meet our customer needs. And that not only frames our product definition, but also guides our operational frameworks. You see, everybody in the organization needs to internalize these goals and internalize the customer context so it can guide our technical decisions. Okay, let's get into some of these layers on the left-hand side, and I'm going to start with data first. You've likely heard phrases like, data is an asset, it's the new oil, and let me move back. It's the new oil, and garbage in, garbage out. Yet there is actually a debate about what's more important, the model or the data. Now, let's simplify machine learning. You start with some data, you train and optimize a model on that data, and then you use that model to make predictions on new data. Yet data preparation, data collection, exploration of features tends to be the less sexy part of the AI conversation. But data is so important to the integrity of an AI system. And it can be really challenging because data is messy, it's dynamic. And when it comes to preparation in terms of supervised learning, labeling can be resource intensive and expensive. So you can take a data-centric approach by spending more time exploring the data, getting your machine learning researchers and subject matter experts together to define patterns and functions within the data. Now, this can be then fed into an intermediate model that can be used to train the final model by labeling data and maybe even generating synthetic data. Whichever approach you take, data quality matters. That's accuracy, completeness, and consistency. We also need to address bias in data so we don't cause harm. And larger data sets don't guarantee diversity. We talk a lot about web-scale content in terms of training large language models, or LLMs. But did you know that most of the web content is dominated by English, and 75% of the global population doesn't speak English at all? And when you add the fact that tokenization varies across different languages, this further causes disparities. So we need to keep this in mind, but we also need to consider our data architecture. So storage, access patterns, pipelines, data leakage, and monitoring for bias, of course. Now, in this debate ongoing about what's more important, the data or the code, it's really interesting that some of the larger players have recently lifted the lid about what's going on underneath their models, but they've yet to do the same with their data sets. So we could argue that data is your competitive advantage, but in reality, it's a bit of a redundant debate, and we actually have to evolve both. Now, machine learning spans from classical tree-based models to complex layers of neural architectures. And in practice, companies employ many models, ensembles of models, and for various features. And then they have variants for different customer segments, users, and regions. And they're all constantly being updated. You'd probably say that your human colleagues are not very predictable, but we do expect a level of predictability from our algorithms and systems. So I've presented this slide as a simplified circuit loop for simplicity, but actually there's iterations on each step. I won't cover the data steps again, but just highlight some of the people involved, like data ops, data engineers, machine learning researchers and engineers, analysts, but also people from outside your technical org, like sales and subject matter experts. And together, they will need to define the features that will optimize the algorithm's performance. And if we're conducting prompt engineering, then we need to make sure we're building fair, ethical, and unbiased prompts. When it comes to integrity in model training and experimentation, we need to start with baselining our current capabilities, selecting the right model type. That could be something classical, or it could be something more complex, which is why we need to constantly assess our risks. So a medical use case or high-value transactions may require a much more complex, resource-intensive model. And of course, as we're experimenting, we have hypotheses to try and optimize for specific variables and parameters, but we have to monitor other factors like resource usage, compute, and speed, and if there are any signs of bias or harm. Now, when it comes to validation and evaluation, it's not just about the models, but it's also about our data splits and our entire process loop. Similarly, for model deployment, we have to think about versioning for our models, our data, and the artifacts that we produce. And make sure we have robust monitoring and tracking of the variables and the models in production so that we have model reliability and continuous improvement. So, application Prosecco. Prosecco isn't just the drink you're going to have later tonight. No, it actually stands for privacy, security, and compliance. And I absolutely cannot take credit for this. This was actually a name of a meeting for the colleagues in those functions at Onfido. And it's important because at the application layer processes data. It controls and orchestrates the user actions and delivers the output from the underlying AI layer. And so we need to build with the user experience in mind. And so thinking about examples of that, if you were building a travel app or a virtual therapy app, and you had a recommendation engine that was powering those. For the travel app, you may be moving towards more of a mobile app for users on the go with online streaming, geolocation, and some batch processing. Whereas for a virtual therapy app, you may need to be catering to a progressive web app, so it can be used on desktop or mobile. And you may be more batch processing based, and actually have more constraints on what you can even use for machine learning because of the privacy and security concerns. Your product platform is a service. It needs to stay up. Does anyone want to admit to being on call in an incident this year? I will. It wasn't fun. And so machine learning operations play a crucial role in providing the necessary experimentation and deployment tooling and infrastructure for experimentation and deployment, like having the right compute, be it CPUs or GPUs, and maintaining environment consistency. Having easy access to data that is fresh and representative, and the ability to track experiments, share data sets, notebooks, and experiment parameters so that feedback and collaboration and iteration is fast and seamless. As we said, organizations tend to employ many different models, some proprietary, some open source, some third party, and this diversity adds to the complexity and heterogeneous dependencies. So it's crucial to balance flexibility with consistency in the infrastructure, and so you need to invest in building or buying tooling that helps you with provisioning, auto-scaling, managing resources, containers with the right libraries and framework flexibility. Because scaling to hundreds, thousands, or even millions of users at low inference latency and high availability is a hallmark of a matured AI system. So our models have to also meet our production, resiliency, and reliability standards. You don't want a resource-hungry model taking your whole system down. Okay, so how did we apply some of this whilst I was at Onfido? And I think a video will play. So Onfido was verifying identities all around the world for our clients, and our clients wanted to onboard as many of their good users as possible quickly without accepting any fraudsters. The data was incredibly diverse. At any given time, there were over 4,000 different identity documents like passports or driver's licenses. And when it comes to biometrics, well, we don't all look identical. And in the age of big data, not all data is big. Fraud samples, for example, are really hard to source because actually most people are good or at least compliant. And when it came to our infrastructure, some of the things that was interesting is as our research team began to experiment with capturing images, videos instead of images, I had to think about what this would do to our infrastructure roadmap and how we needed to evolve our compute and data storage needs. I'm particularly proud of the work we did as MLOps, DevOps, DataOps, technical program management teams. It's kind of the unsung heroes of AI. It's particularly as well working with design on accessibility so that people who are visually impaired can also have access to this technology. I think I've gone one too far, but you'll see another video. So at CloudFO, we're disrupting and humanizing financial insights and data analysis. And a key part of that for us is the user experience. What we don't want to be is another BI tool. No, we're actually trying to be part of your team. We also have a diverse amount of data, so from near real-time bank transactions to integrations with different apps and multilingual learning content for the CloudFO bot. This means that we have to be thoughtful in our policies around data acquisition to avoid bias. And we're also employing our own models as well as the available large language models. So it was our goal to build and deploy prompts that are ethical, that emphasize security, and reduce inference latency and improve security. So that's what we've done, and we've built something to actually streamline all of this and make sure we have the right auditability as a fintech, and it's called Prompt Studio AI. And that helps to streamline all of this. Because as an early-stage startup, scaling can look like moving from a notebook to experimenting with family and friends, to releasing to our waitlist, to hopefully many more of you soon. And that's it from me. Thank you all for listening. My name's Afiya Chohollo. I'm also here with the founder and co-founder of CloudFO, Dr. Adrian Stamp. Let me get that right. And you can follow us on all the socials here. If you're interested in Prompt Studio, we realize it could actually be helpful for others. Also find us on promptstudio.ai or join our beta at cloudfo.co. Thank you so much for listening.